Welcome to the second chapter of the Trilogy of Jessica Bauer, where tensions rise, secrets are unveiled, and a daring escape tests the limits of courage and survival. Join us as we dive into a world of intrigue, danger, and unexpected connections. Stay tuned, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thrilling updates.
Chapter 2. Tension and Betrayal. Just do it. Instead of encouraging him, her voice startled him. The sword was back at his side and his gaze on the wall. He shook his head slightly. This wasn't Thomas. This was only a girl. She could be as infuriating and annoying as she wanted, but she wasn't a part of this Bauer debacle. He needed to focus. That would be too easy. His voice dripped with a hint of warning. He went back to staring out of the window. His thoughts were wandering between the desire of getting rid of this Jenny, whoever she was, and the predicament he was in. In spite of him, his shoulders were slumped and his eyes rimmed with red. So much for being everyone's worst nightmare. She muttered after downing her drink. Clearly, she wasn't afraid of him. The thought made him straighten and step closer to her. "What's your problem?" He was standing right behind her with a clean handkerchief. His tone was biting, but his hand was gentle when he wiped off the blood trickling from the side of her neck. She didn't flinch, but her whole body was ready to jump away. "Listen, I don't care who you are. Actually, I don't give a damn about you. Finish your drink and you're going back to Rex. He better send me someone more fun next time." Her glass dropped and shattered at her feet, making him mutter a curse. She turned swiftly, and he saw a flicker of emotion in her eyes. Terror, pure terror. But before he could react, she leaned towards him, her hands snaking behind his head and her lips on his. Her tongue slipped into his mouth, and she pressed her breast against his chest. The feel of her soft body molding his was delicious. His hands traveled down her back as he kissed her back. But his mind was still working its wheels, and he pulled his face away, their bodies still entwined. "That bad, huh?" "What?" Her eyes were hazy with desire and her face flushed. He wanted to stop thinking, just go with the flow and unwrap her in his bed, but his mind wasn't settling down. Too much coffee? Or too much Bauer? "You're scared to go back to Rex. Why?" His eyes were searching hers as sharply as the most skilled interrogator. "Why do you think?" Her lips looked far too enticing, and yet a spark of concern lit his eyes. "He treats you." His right hand was still on her shoulders, and he could feel a thick scar through the strands of her hair. Viciously. He finished his remark with an almost horrified tone. He moved behind her, and she could feel his breath in her hair. She took a step away from him. "Really? The great Theodore Waters, who slaughtered so many, is concerned about a—" She couldn't say the word. She wasn't a prostitute. If she didn't say it, then it wasn't true. She was prepared for his retort, but instead he shook his head. "I really didn't know. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I know Rex is no angel, but that— How old are you?" "Come on!" She stomped her foot. He was making her dizzy with his moods, but he didn't seem to have noticed her reaction. He looked sad, but it was probably because of the flicker of candlelight. "I'm sorry." She stilled. Did he really say it, or did she imagine it? Puzzled, she peered at his face. It wasn't an illusion. He looked sad and had a faraway look in his eyes. Wow, he's human after all, she thought. "How did you end up there?" He asked so softly that she barely heard him. Her heart skipped a beat. He was towering over her, but he wasn't looking at her. Another drink was in his hands, and he was sloshing the dark amber beverage around. She racked her mind to come up with an answer. This wasn't a conversation she was used to having. Men didn't want to know anything that would make her human, and the girls knew that dwelling on the past was the most intoxicating poison. Her nails tore into the soft skin of her arms. It was surreal. Nothing about this evening was going as expected. She should be dead by now, or pinned under him. Both seemed less threatening than being under the scrutiny of this stubborn man. Shrugging, she tugs a strand of her hair and twisted it around her finger. Her attempts at mustering the seductive vamp in her were pathetic. Jessica Bauer was stirring and wanted to be heard. It didn't matter if the person inquiring was the worst of them all. He was the only one seemed to care. It was as if he knew exactly what buttons to push to make her come to life. I wanted to see how the world was beyond our village. Barely made it one day, and they got me. Her voice broke a little, but she was proud that no tears were even gracing her eyes. He sighed loudly and turned away from her. This wasn't supposed to happen. His head was bowed and his eyes staring holes in the floor. She moved towards him and took his hand. It was an impulsive gesture, but one that she only offered to her fellow sisters. She had seen enough broken people to fill a lifetime, and this certainly was not a man at the full bloom of his glory. He looked up in surprise, and they gazed at each other wordlessly. He wasn't a saint, but he wasn't a man like Rex either. Something in the manner he was looking at her reminded her of Adrian, and her hand slipped away. Theodore Waters was a far cry from her beloved Adrian. She swallowed a sob. Waters hadn't moved, but his gaze wasn't on her anymore. Thomas and me, we started this democracy together, and now he's coming after me once more. I never meant for all of this to happen, but it did. Her stomach knotted. Thomas Bauer was the last person she wanted to think about right now. Some secrets are best left unknown by our one's consciousness. Impatiently, she moved closer to Waters. Her left hand pulled his face closer, and she kissed him, while her right hand had slipped down to cup him over his pants. Her teeth bit his lower lip, and he growled into her mouth as he pushed for another kiss. All the words, worries, and thoughts that had been haunting them were melting away, and all that existed was need and flesh. He effortlessly slipped her dress off her body. His hands moved to cover her breast as she was furiously trying to push down his pants. This time, they didn't speak again until they were lying breathless in his bed. They had tossed and turned, trying to keep the upper hand, but Theo had won in the end. He rolled off Jessie and stared at the ceiling. Jessica usually was strictly business, hop and off as she called it. She would usually hop off the bed, bid adieu to her customer, clean herself, and be ready for another one or just call it a night. Whatever was required of her. It was the first time she was entertaining somewhere else, and it was also the first time she was staying the night. She knew she should creep to the other side of the bed, or at least not do what she was about to do. She snuggled closer to him, she head pillowed on his chest. His arm went around her instinctively, but he didn't look at her. She felt safe, warm, and so sleepy. She didn't fight slumber, and it took a hold of her. The last time she had been embraced by someone was by her friend Maisie, and it had felt nothing like this. The next morning, he barely acknowledged her as he went to prepare for his day. Jessie lingered in the bed, not caring whether she was covered or not. Once she was done basking in the warm glow of the morning and waiting for him to come back, she quickly freshened up and changed back into her dress. She padded barefoot to the sounds of cutlery and found a door ajar. It led her to the grand dining room. It must have been for private uses, only as it was attached to the general's bedroom, but it was big enough for a reception, or so she thought. Waters' plate was filled, and he beckoned her to sit in front of him. She didn't reach for the lavish display of food, but filled herself a mug of coffee. At Rex's, they usually drank some kind of mix of chicory and roasted grains, but had coffee on special occasions like Christmas. "Good morning." "Morning." His tone indicated that he wasn't a morning person. She watched him chew and glanced at the food once more. She noticed some kind of bumpy small cakes filled with raisins, and her curiosity taking the better of her, she asked him, "What are those?" "Muffins." "Oh, well, I never seen them before. We don't have grand breakfast tables back." Her forced, charming tone dropped as she finished. "Home." It couldn't be her home, but what was it then? Her jail? Her life? He seemed disinterested, and she nodded to herself. She knew about not having too many expectations from her customers, or any people for that matter. After all, sex was just sex, nothing more. And he was certainly the king of bizarre. She mentioned something about the weather, and the conversation dropped. She didn't try to eat because her throat was feeling closed up. Her eyes darted to Waters, but his face was blank, and he was reading some report or newspaper. It seemed pretty domestic, or as she imagined a normal breakfast would be. It had none of the crassness she had gotten used to. At the most, she was the one tarnishing the picture with her wrinkled dress and bed hair. He was cleanly shaven, and his hair seemed crisp and probably cleaner than hers. She decided to take advantage of opportunity she had and tasted a toast smeared with jam. The door opened, and a man in uniform came to give Waters a report. Jessie barely looked at him as he talked about a target being brought to Columbus in a few days, and that Thomas Bauer had been spotted in the outskirts of Columbus. Without even suspecting who the target could be, she went to the bathroom to wash her hands sticky with cherry jam. She was out of earshot when Waters commented, "No doubt Thomas thinks he's smarter than me and will get Timothy before me. How's Timothy?" "Conscious but barely speaking, sir. His wounds are healing." When Jessie came back from the lavish bathroom, Waters was standing alone. "I've got a few things to do. You know, a democracy to handle. Be back in a few hours. Feel free to entertain yourself." Domestic, indeed. Jessie nodded and half expected him to kiss her, but he didn't acknowledge her further. He left his apartment after grabbing a stack of paper and his trusted sword. She watched him leave, his shoulders rigid, his face a hard mask. So this was the real General Waters? She didn't know whether she should feel honored that he had shown his vulnerability last night, or run for the hills. She stood up, took a few steps, but then decided to sit again. She took another sip of her now cold coffee and tried to make sense of this new situation. Waters hadn't mentioned someone coming to escort her back to Rex's. He was actually expecting her to be around. Well, it didn't mean she had to. He probably thought she was a stupid blonde. This always worked in her favor. She hated playing stupid, but it was not like she was a trained fighter or rebel. She was just a girl who knew how to play men. Well, usually, she was pretty good at her job, but Theodore Waters was confusing. She went back to his bedroom. The bed was still a mess. The help was probably waiting for His Highness to leave. Jessie looked down at her dress critically. She hadn't brought a change of clothes. To gather her wits, she relied on the familiarity of putting on makeup. She hadn't removed it the previous night, but it wouldn't hurt to have an extra layer of crimson on her lips and some black on her eyelashes. It made her feel stronger. Clothes were another matter. She couldn't stand this dress, and it would make it easier to spot her. And those shoes? She was pretty sure they were used to keep women on their toes in the pre-war world. She noticed the large mahogany wardrobe. Well, his clothes wouldn't fit, but they would be far more comfortable than hers. She pulled one drawer to the next. Each were filled with uniforms. "We get it. You're a general and have no life." The last drawer was stuck, and she had to use all her weight to open it. She ended up on her ass. There was a necklace, an old faded dress, and a few other objects that didn't make sense to her. But her search was successful as she pulled out a faded light blue shirt, and she couldn't believe her luck, jeans. It must have been his secret drawer or something, filled with pre-general era things. She didn't care much about his secrets. If she had the time, her curiosity would have probably made her inspect every item, but she didn't have the time. The jeans were not fitting her slime frame, and the sleeves of the shirt were far too long, but at least she didn't look like a lady of pleasure. She tried the door, and of course, there was a guard. He expressionlessly stared. "Hey, soldier, I'm going out for a stroll," she said with a smile. "I have orders to—" "Really? Theodore," she drawled. told me that I could go to the market to buy new clothes. She widened her eyes and made sure her voice was as sweet and thick as honey. I mean, look at me. I look awful. She giggled and almost pinched herself for overdoing it. The guard was mesmerized by her shirt that she had failed to button. Modesty wasn't really her strong suit. Are you I'll be back very soon. Don't worry. She winked. And with that, she was gone. She had no idea how to get out of the mansion, but she somehow managed to stumble into the daylight without anyone stopping her. In a few steps, she was lost into the crowd. Her heart was beating wildly, and she was smiling so much her mouth was hurting. It felt so good. No wrecks, no customers, no more simulated orgasms. Free. All the faces she saw were so different. She had gotten so used to hollow eyes, filth and darkness. Here, some were smiling, laughing and talking. It seemed so mundane yet so exotic. It brought forward some old memories of her hometown and even some dusty ones from before the attack. She spotted a small shop that sold second-hand goods. She couldn't afford anything else. Her little purse only held a few coins. She hadn't planned for this lucky strike. She spent a long time looking at jeans and shirts that could fit her better, but her feet were hurting so much that she couldn't ignore the sensible choice. Boots were her priority, and a belt to hold these ill-fitting clothes. She carefully counted the coins to pay for her fines, but noticed that the man was also selling knives and swords under the counter. How much for a knife? For you, my sweet? He showed her a few options, and it turned out she could afford the smallest. She hadn't touched a gun in her life, but seen enough men handling them. They didn't really care about whether it was legal, but knives were a girl's domain. Everyone had at least one dangerous customer in their lives. Jessie shrugged off these thoughts about a life she would never have. A delicious, mouth-watering smell made her stop in her track. A few people were standing in front of a stall. She peered to see what was making her stomach growl. Fries! She had read about them and probably tasted them as a child, but here she could enjoy them. She didn't hesitate to hand the peddler her last coins. The afternoon was stretching to an end as she was licking off the salt from her fingers. She noticed a group of reserve soldiers passing by and ducked in a side alley. Were they looking for her? It was only then that she considered how angry Waters must have been. But he wouldn't mind that much, would he? She was just a girl. He could find a replacement. As for losing face, well, none of his men knew that she had taken advantage of his kindness. She didn't feel bad about it then. Why did she feel slightly guilty? Well, on the other hand, Waters hadn't paid for her service, so he owed her, and not the other way around. The sight of the reserve had sent a chill down her back. She should leave the city. She had no idea how she would get through the checkpoints. The joy of being free to do whatever she wanted had distracted her. Maybe she should lay low and wait for a few days? She crept out of the alley to peer into the main street when a pair of hands grabbed her. She struggled to face him and grabbed the handle of her knife. "Hey, baby!" Jessie pushed away the repulsive and smelly man. Her protective instinct kicked in as she jabbed her knife in his stomach and shoved him away. He was hollering when she broke into a run. A militia soldier soon heard him and rushed towards him. "Are you okay?" "That bitch! She knifed me!" He pointed towards the direction she had disappeared. What did she look like? Long blonde hair, nice tits. The soldier turned to his superior. "It has to be her." He nodded and gave orders to his men, and they scrambled in the direction Jessie had taken. "Are you going to get her?" panted the man. "The general is looking for her." "Good. I hope he hangs the bitch." The soldier didn't answer, but grimaced. He didn't think the general wanted to harm her. He had heard the guard at the door had received quite an earful. There were rumors and whispers about the general losing his mind. Why was he so adamant about keeping a camp follower? But whispers were all the people had got under the iron fist of General Waters. Soon enough, he saw 3 of his men dragging the girl in their midst. So much trouble for a girl who didn't seem to put up a fight. Jessie followed them silently with her eyes downcast. It was one thing to stab a drunk, but these men knew what they were doing, and her whole body and mind could still remember last time she had tried to run. The scars on her back prickled. There never was a way out for her. Why did she even try to break free? This time, she had crossed the line.
Thank you for joining us on this gripping journey through Chapter 2 of the Trilogy of Jessica Bauer. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated with the latest chapters. See you in the next episode.